After 2 days in the Cibola National Forest, looking for rosy finches and the pygmy owl, it was time to head down to the valley to Bosque del Apache National Wildlife Refuge. On my way, I took the advice of 2 birders I met while on Sandia Crest and made a stop at Bernardo Waterfowl Management Area. They had told me that this was currently the best spot to view the massive flocks of cranes and snow geese. And they were right. Cranes were everywhere, flying in from surrounding areas, wading in the ponds, and feeding in the agricultural fields. A large flock of snow geese was present as well, feeding in the field. I watched in amazement as the snow geese flock spooked and took flight, swirling in the sky overhead, and finally dropping back down into the field. As the golden hour of evening sunlight progressed into shadows, the numbers of sandhill cranes grew larger and louder. I was definitely not the only one there, as a cadre of photographers and birders were there to witness the spectacle as well. This is what I had come here for. It was truly an evening to remember. I'm at Bosque del Apache National Wildlife Refuge. This morning I took an auto tour of the refuge. Only thing is, it was about 12 degrees. All of the lagoons, ponds, everything was frozen. There were a few open areas that did have some ducks, and there were still hundreds of ducks. But I'm sure the numbers would be a lot higher if the water was open and not frozen. Still got a lifer Mexican duck. I actually saw 4, managed some photos, and they can be confused with hybrids and with female mallards, but I got good looks, so I'm confident of Mexican duck. I was searching through meadowlarks looking for Lillian's or Chihuahuan Meadowlark. No luck there. Other wildlife encountered included this northern harrier, first perched and then later flying over the lake and marsh. Also, these lesser yellowlegs and this coyote that walked right by my car as I tried to film it, and later one was seen feeding on a dead bird out on the ice. I got some tips at the visitor center to go see the Arboretum, which is right next to the visitor center. And it was loaded with birds. I got curve-billed thrasher, sage thrasher, spotted towhee, canyon towhee, white-crowned sparrows, white-winged dove, Pyrrholoxia. And running around everywhere were Gambel's quails. Quite a lot of fun to see them. Such a pretty looking bird. So skittish though. Hard to get pictures of because they don't sit still and they like to hide in the brush, but then when they come out in the open, they just kind of skitter across. I did manage a few pictures. Really neat spot, highly recommended if you come here, and you can sit in the visitor center and watch the bird feeders as well. And then they also recommended that I come and do the canyon trail. That's where I am right now. It's about a 2.5 mile long trail, and I'm looking for some desert species. I have one in particular that I'd like to see, and that is the Sagebrush Sparrow. Have not found a sagebrush sparrow yet, but the other one on my list that she said was possible out here is the black-throated sparrow. And I did get looks at 3 black-throated sparrows together in a little flock, and one perched up on a branch for me real nice. I have to say it's one of my favorite sparrows. It brings me back to my first birding trip to the desert Southwest to Big Bend National Park, where that was my first extraordinary sparrow that I'd never seen before. And that really was one of the birds on that trip that really sparked more of my interest in birds. And of course, it's just a really handsome sparrow. So I'm going to finish up this trail and then look for Roadrunner. Would love to see that one yet. And look for Chihuahuan Meadowlark. I have a couple of spots to check. It is finally warming up. It's in the 40s now. It was 12 degrees this morning. It's supposed to be 50 today. So, all right, well, wish me luck.
Later that afternoon, I hiked the Marsh Overlook Trail, not just for looks at the marsh. There was a nice boardwalk, and I did get views of killdeer and least sandpiper. But I was there for the sage habitat, in search of the sagebrush sparrow. Eventually, I found one perched up in the bushes and pursued it, eventually getting better looks at it with the sun at my back. I had reason to celebrate great views of this new lifer. I rounded out my birding at the refuge with wild turkey and Sandhill cranes, highlighted by a beautiful New Mexico sunset. I celebrated that night with a plate full of traditional New Mexican food, Christmas style, meaning green and red chilies. The morning revealed that frigid cold and ice had returned overnight. These snow geese were isolated in this pond, created only by their own movement and body heat. And this poor Say's Phoebe struggled to flush any insects out of the grass along the waterways. However, my main objective for the day was to search the refuge for Roadrunners. As luck would have it, I finally did come across one of these iconic New Mexican birds. I just couldn't leave New Mexico without seeing one. I ended up getting pretty close looks, even though it was still hidden behind some of the brush. But I did manage to get one clear segment of video before he ran off and disappeared into the scrubland. Next up was the Chihuahuan Meadowlark. So, is this the cross between a Chihuahua and a meadowlark? No. Originally a subspecies of the eastern meadowlark, it was known as the Lillian's meadowlark. In 2022, it was split from eastern meadowlark to its own species based on genetic information, range, song, and a few plumage differences. The Chihuahuan differs from the eastern and western meadowlarks by having more white in the tail and on the flanks, a more whitish face and malar stripe, a thinner black V on the breast, and a clean yellow belly that does not have dark streaks on it. As I drove the back roads, flocks of meadowlarks would flush off the side of the road. I would stop, get my scope out, and scan through each group of them, hoping to find a Chihuahuan meadowlark. It seemed like every meadowlark I got my eyes on turned out to be a western. until finally I caught a look at this one. Clean yellow belly, light streaking on the flanks, thin V on the breast, a white face with a white mailer stripe. All my effort had paid off. I had found a Chihuahuan Meadowlark. Other bonus birds on the day included beautiful views of western bluebirds. Probably the best views I've ever had. And an up-close encounter with an American kestrel. I also encountered my first field of chili peppers. New Mexico is the largest producer and consumer of chili peppers. At the end of the day, I decided to go back to Bernardo Waterfowl Management Area to enjoy the cranes and geese one more time before heading home the next day. Near one of the wildlife blinds, I found a black phoebe and enjoyed watching it flit from perch to perch. I had again timed my visit during the golden hour of sunlight at the end of the day, giving a magical feel to the scenery. There wasn't much left to do but enjoy the scenery and my last evening in New Mexico. The next morning, I got up early to visit one more birding site before the end of my trip, Tres Pistolas Canyon, just outside of Albuquerque. I was looking for my final two lifer species of the trip, juniper titmouse and Crissal Thrasher. The early morning sunlight on the canyon walls made for a beautiful hike. Along the way, I encountered numerous woodhouses scrub jays and this ladder-backed woodpecker. It wasn't long until I heard my first juniper titmouse in the juniper thickets along the trail, and he popped out for a quick view. Crissal Thrasher was a bit more of a challenge, but in the upper regions of the canyon in these thickets, I found one. I heard it first, and eventually located it for much better views. I was now at 96 species and decided with my time remaining I would make a quick stop at Rio Grande Nature Center near the airport. Circumstances were not on my side as they were actively tree trimming and making a lot of noise. I would only eventually be able to add two more species, wood duck and American crow, before having to get to the airport for my flight home. I had reached my goal of 50 species by having had 88 on the trip and 98 total for New Mexico. This included a total of 7 lifers for the trip. I felt satisfied. Thank you for tuning in for my adventures birding in New Mexico. Be sure to subscribe and watch for more videos on my 50-50-50 birding challenge.